Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirbhishesha Shunyavadi Pastyatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paraman Sukari Prajaka Stotra Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Raj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund, Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Welcome, Hare Krishna. Thank you for the very happy Kendra Prabhu. Om Jnana Tasya Kiranjana Shalakaya Chakshurin Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurava Shri Chaitanya Pistam Stapam Jena Bhutale Swayambhuvada Mahyam Dadhati Shapadantika Vandehan Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Na Ragamanatan Vitam Stam Savivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya De Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vansha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevaja Tita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Well, we have a question from Lakshmana. I was wondering if you could comment on what Srila Prabhupada would say or advise about devotees who use curse words to express themselves in casual conversation. Good, interesting question. Of course, what he would say is always somewhat speculative. I'm trying to recall if we have some statement in Prabhupada's writings about that. And nothing comes to mind. Tulsi says, can we define curse words? Prabhupada used the words damn and hell. There are other words that are saltier, of course. Yes, well, let's start here. Since I don't know of any specific instruction in the books about this, I don't know if there's something in Shastra. I haven't seen anything directly from Srila Prabhupada's writings. But Srila Prabhupada said that a devotee should be a perfect gentleman. Prabhupada said that a devotee should be a perfect gentleman. And we expect to find behavior of cultured people, general kind of cleanliness in discourse. There's a kind of mode of discourse where every second word is one of those much saltier terms. And I told the sergeant, take his such and such and his F and this and his F and that, and you could tell that F and this and that, and everything is like, you can't get a word out of your mouth unless it's accompanied by what the author Tom Wolfe called Army Creole, which a kind of low-class language that belongs to sailors and so on. It's just immediately identifiable as low class. I remember in the news many years ago, there was President Nixon, I believe, had used quite a strong term, and his golf partner, Billy Graham, the American evangelist, had expressed some dismay, shall we say, over it. Kendra says, yes, used to be only sailors had tattoos also. Sailors and bikers. So in America, there's sort of been a tendency for low class language, low class habits, low class music, low class to come up in the world, to become more mainstream. And it's not very nice. I'll confess to you that I have observed in myself an unnecessary tendency to be a little freer, or sometimes very much freer with vivid language than is good. Had to send out the police on myself and try to be more reserved. Tilt my screen upwards, you think, like that? Kendra? Do you mean upwards in this direction or upwards in the opposite direction?
Upwards in the opposite direction.
More like that.
That's perfect.
Okay. So I would look at it that way and say that devotees, we're supposed to be representing Srila Prabhupada, we're supposed to be representing Krishna, we're supposed to be representing divinity, and for us to be have our language full of sort of low class terminology, low class expletives and so on, is prestige points, doesn't make our respectable. And when we use it among ourselves casually, then it's understood that we'll also use it elsewhere casually. And it doesn't look very good. And it probably doesn't elevate our consciousness either, to be using that sort of language. Let me think if there's something else. Yeah, now Prabhupada did use sometimes vivid language himself. Surprisingly vivid language sometimes. And not the lowest of language, of course, but sometimes there'd be a damn and a hell, and there'd be a little more vivid than that. That wasn't it sort of stood out because that wasn't characteristic of his speech. He wouldn't be saying, what the hell this and what the hell that, and what am I supposed to do about this dam and that dam? It was unusual, and so it stood out. I don't know what else should we say? Would someone else like to throw something in there? The original question for those who came late was, could you comment on what Srila Prabhupada would say or advise about devotees who use curse words to express themselves in casual conversation? I might also say, by the way, that earlier in American culture, when American culture was more deserving of the term, to use that kind of language in the presence of women was considered exceedingly rude. The guys might among themselves use that kind of language, but in the presence of women, it was considered uncouth, rude, offensive to use that kind of language. Now, of course, it's considered cool for women themselves to use that kind of language. It's like a sign of, what should we say, of that we're on equal ground here, so that a woman can swear like a truck driver and show that she's can get on with the best of them. But in previous times, even Prabhupada mentions in Srimad Bhagavatam, or one of his books, that now even young men smoke in the presence of their elders. So it was considered, what would you say, disrespectful for a young person to smoke or to use that kind of language of superiors in the presence of women. In the presence of children, it was considered bad to do. Now it's become sort of common. It's become among the culture, the more cultured, it may become deliberate, just if they want to show that they're on the same level as the people in general, and so on. Yes, Tulsi Priya.
Thank you, Maharaj. It was just occurring to me, I grew up with a potty mouth. My mother's a New Yorker, and she grew up in the poor areas, and so I sort of inherited it at a very young age. But one thing I'm noticing, especially on social media, not social media with devotees, but with non-devotees, is there's a huge proliferation of it. It's like, and my feeling about it is that swear words are basically, they're an expression of anger, and it's become so normalized. And I think people will not admit to it, but I think it's because people are perpetually angry all the time, and it's just become so normalized that dropping F-bombs or whatever is just part of normal speech because people are ticked off all the time. And it's just the level of anger, the normal level of anger has risen, and so the language is reflecting that. And so I still occasionally, more in private, and my husband doesn't like it, but sometimes it happens anyways, but I feel like it's just I think if we allow ourselves to do that, and I'm glad to hear this because I just used a word today that I shouldn't have. If we allow ourselves to do it and we try not to adjust our speech to reflect something that isn't so angry, we're probably cultivating that anger in us.
Interesting observation. The kama krodha tata lobhas tasmareta triyam shajet. That anger is one of the gates to hell, and I think you're right that not always, but quite often, that kind of language just expresses frustration, anger. You know, if we can't accomplish what we want, then at least we can spume out some nasty language to express our feelings. And as devotees, we're better off controlling our feelings and therefore controlling our language, or controlling our language with a recognition that our feelings are also in need of control. Nice point.
What I was trying to say is I think the baseline of people's anger has risen in
Yes.
throughout the population. And we don't,
Yes.
you know, even when we think we're not angry, we're actually angrier than maybe people were 50 years ago.
Yes. Yes. I think there is it's even cultivated as a kind of chic. You know, there is a sort of advertising image, you know, some, you know, angry woman, angry man, you know, and it's like, you know, I'm not going to let those bastards, blah, 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 you know, and sort of, yeah, right on, sister. That's sort of a feeling that we're all part of a culture of anger.
It's seen as empowerment.
Yeah, 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 I have power because I can use words that'll express, or I'm entitled to, you know, you've wronged me, so I'm entitled to use this language or about you. If you weren't such a blah, 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 I wouldn't use this kind of blah, blah, blah language because blah, blah, blah. That's, yeah, with anger. And yeah, in a sense of superiority even, or well, as an expression of false ego. And whereas a saintly person is mild, is gentle, is unaffected by praise and blame, is humble. Yes, Kamalini.
Well, when I first started associating with devotees at the Brooklyn Temple, I was very strongly impressed at how the men never used bad language. It was just like very notable to me, such a wonderful quality. And on several occasions, new Indian devotees who are new to America, they use this bad language. And I remember one time I said, did you know that that's like a very low class curse word? He goes, you're kidding. I learned that because they're learning, you know, to fit in. That's how my coworkers, that's how they talk. And I thought it was totally normal. I said, no, it's not to use that language and all, and on more than one occasion, because of course, if they're learning and that's their association, they're thinking that's just, you know, the thing to do, how people talk.
I did that myself one time. I used a word in a class in Spanish and everybody went, whoa, you know, I miscalibrated. You know, what register that belonged to.
Yeah, like even in, you know, in Sanskrit, puja means worship, right?
Yes.
But puj means stool. So we
Right.
can leave the A off, just say puj, guru puj, you know.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah, another topic. Get Redine under Marge here for that one.
Yes. Prabin had a comment that I would find these words when Prabhupada would say as some alternatives to emphasize. For example, damn cheap, Babu. Damn, to me, would be very much cheap. Yeah, Prabhupada used the occasional damn. Of course, there it's like a quotation. It's a who thinks that everything is damn cheap. And Prabhupada's sort of quoting, which makes it a little gentler. But he would occasionally use a damn or so, but as sort of when Prabhupada would use it, it would generally be gentle. It wouldn't be, who does this damn fool think he is, or something. Or they can, he would use it selectively, let's say, in a controlled and selective fashion. But he did. He used these words sometimes. I think people expect a higher standard of behavior from a sannyasi or a devotee. What is mild or acceptable swearing for an ordinary person is shocking coming from a devotee. I found that, therefore, I've had to, I've recognized that in my own speech, that it's sometimes, I think Mars in the house of speech, tends to be hot. So I even when I'm not using that kind of language, sometimes what I say just as an ordinary statement comes across to other people as being excessively sharp or hot. So I always have to watch my speech, and part of it is watching out for this kind of language, which, yes, does shock people. They don't expect it from a sannyasi, from a spiritual leader, from a devotee. And we do find that in other religious communities, there's attention given to that, if we're Christians, or if we're religious people, we shouldn't be using this kind of language. And again, I'm just being, subjective here. But I think that as devotees, if we want to represent Srila Prabhupada, if we want to be, as he said, perfect ladies and gentlemen, then some cleaning up of our speech would be helpful. And I would think in other areas also, to have a consciousness of what's cultured and what's uncultured, to have a sense of what's low, and to avoid that. I guess I won't get into my own personal rants about certain things I think are low, but Haridas says, sometimes in the US, rough language is linked with a salt of the earth honesty from people who cut through pretension and are themselves straightforward in their dealings. You may see it in films where the hero speaks roughly and yet outdoes the more well-spoken but ineffective person. Maybe this translates into rough usage for some, but with a sense of being unpretentious. Yeah, I think there's, and this is sort of, you're putting a more nuanced look at this. I think you're right. There's a book by William F. Buckley, was quite a erudite and learned commentator on American public affairs, and he, I think, prided, he went to Yale University, and there was a sort of almost, what would you say? Well, a kind of pride and aristocracy in his persona, and he was accustomed to using, 6-syllable words and Latin and so on. But he wrote a book of responses that he wrote to people who wrote to his magazine, and one person had written and said, "Cancel my subscription," blah, 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 blah. Didn't like something he'd written. He wrote him back and said, cancel your own goddamn subscription, and titled his book that title. And for him, and he was a Roman Catholic, a practicing and Roman Catholic. He considered goddamn with a lowercase g to be sort of, as you say, linked more with down to earthness than with a kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Than with irreverence or with rudeness. But that said, other people take it differently. We do want to be careful, I think. At least be selective, and if you're going to use one of those things, be careful about it. As Kamalini Mata observed, my sense is that it's a great relief for people to witness saintly behavior. Tulsi Priya says it's a venial sin to swear or take God's name in vain in the Catholic Church. When I see devotees using, Sankarshan says, vulgar language to get their points across, I'm not interested in hearing from them in spiritual matters. Yeah, I think there's, again, this is useful for us to think that we should be controlled in our speech, that we should be masters of our tongues and not the other way around. Vacho vega, the urge to speak, or the inability to control our speech. Etan vegan udarapastatida. But we should be able to control our speech and not be sort of, what's the word, helpless, about about the language that we use. If you're going to use an expletive, it should be at least because you have carefully considered it and concluded that it's the most appropriate word under the circumstances, not just because routinely this is the kind of language that we use. As Lakshman said, in casual conversation, you just sort of use it like salt and pepper.
I was just thinking also that you could raise the argument that just as certain kinds of behavior tend to either degrade or elevate us, that it's the same with language, that it's almost like it can become an addiction where you just can't at a certain point help yourself. Like, I don't know, you can be saintly one moment and then the next moment you're behind the wheel of a car, somebody cuts you off, and your language choices change as a result of you being behind the wheel of a car, for example. Just you're helpless in that mode of passion instant.
Or on the internet, where once you're on the internet, anything goes. The mode of passion. Tulsi Priya says, that's it, I'm making a swear jar. Proceeds of using bad language will go to the BBT, which promotes transcendental language. Yeah, Krishna's Uttama Shloka. He's praised in select words, and he's pavitra, he's pure. So purity of speech, purity of thought, bhayabhyantara shuchi. So we want to cultivate the mode of goodness. And if in the mode of goodness, one of these words may suit our purpose, we may sometimes, if we're Srila Prabhupada, use it. Or if we're even, we may say, all right, Prabhupada used, I'm entitled to use it here. But I think it's instructive to us that the routine use of this language, or perhaps any use of this language, is really not helping us. Not helping us personally, and not helping our society. And that self-control and self-restraint conducive to Krishna consciousness. Praveen says, while traveling in an argument between me and a co-passenger, as the argument heated up, he started swearing. One devotee requested him not to swear in front of women. I could see the embarrassment on his face. Yeah, that in America, he might not have been so embarrassed. Still in India, that culture is there, and among cultured people in America also, that in front of, as we were saying earlier, that women's ears shouldn't be subjected to all of this kind of stuff. That's now become quite a quaint attitude. There's this, the sense is that that sort of courtesy is no longer warranted. That women are they're just like the other boys. But in more cultured times in America, that would be taken into account. And Grudas says, repeat post, I agree with everything that has been said so far, just to note that Prabhupada would sometimes appropriately use damn to condemn a rascal's behavior or philosophy. Yeah, damn rascals. Prabhupada said that someone was Krishna conscious, they looked bright, and when they leave, they look like damn rascals. So for Prabhupada, damn was sort of a mild expletive, as it is in general American culture. Damn is fairly mild. But when our speech is just peppered with it, then it reflects lower qualities, and also an inability to widen our vocabulary. Prabhupada wanted us to be gentlemen. Yes, so we're sort of repeating the same thoughts here, much to my instruction.
Maharaj, I had a question, and this is in line with what we've discussed, but slightly different tack. It's been a long time since I've witnessed you in action at a question and answers booth at a Rath Yatra to hear how you might deal with this question. But this
It's been a damn long time, hasn't it?
But I was thinking this is, along the lines of how we present ourselves to the public, and some of the more common questions that we're asked by the public. I'm sure you've fielded dozens, if not hundreds of times. I was just wondering if it's something you might want to talk about now. And it's in regard to how devotees commonly look different than other people. They wear certain different clothes, they wear different makeup, they've got different hairstyles. And among devotees, we understand that Prabhupada's desire is one thing, and that's more the motivating factor for those who are already signed up. But can you recall in ways in which you've presented that, or the reasons for that difference to, say, a general public audience?
Srila Prabhupada used to deal with those questions, and he first of all considered them rather stupid, I think. He meets some reporter, and they would ask about why you shave your head, why you wear that stuff on your face, why you wear robes, and so on. And Prabhupada would take it as a sign that they just didn't have the intelligence to ask something about the philosophy. Here we've come with a great, and they're asking why you have this paint on your face. So Srila Prabhupada would quickly take that as a sign that he was dealing with someone who was asking foolish questions. It's famous that I was there, in fact. One young lady who was a journalist for a newspaper came to visit Srila Prabhupada in Detroit, and among her questions was, why do you shave your head? And Prabhupada came back with, why do you shave your legs? And then Prabhupada said, better to have warm legs and a cool brain. Apart from that, no, I don't think she was wearing a miniskirt. She was dressed respectably. But Prabhupada came back with that. When Prabhupada wasn't being disdainful, sometimes he would say that this is our uniform. Especially the Sikha question, why you have that tuft of hair. Prabhupada said, this is our uniform. Just as you can tell a policeman, why does a policeman wear a uniform? So he can be quickly identified, that the government is behind him. So we're representing Krishna, and our dress reflects that. Prabhupada made that point. Let me think if there was something. Yeah, that was sort of his main answer to that. That you'll know right away that we're Hare Krishna people. I should say that traveling dressed in our traditional attire, I've found, people want to talk to me. People, I've had, I was on a flight, older woman was exceedingly disturbed about something, and she asked me, with tears, could you pray for me? Could you pray for me? I've been waved through in Africa. A customs inspector asked me right away, are you a priest? And he was examining everybody's stuff, going through their pocketbooks and this and that. Are you a priest? I said, yeah. He threw the line, big smile. I've sat next to someone on a plane. He says, wouldn't you know? Excuse me. He said, I'm in effect, he said, I'm like a super atheist, and I'm sitting, it was like, so we got into an interesting conversation because of that. So I find that the dress gives me an opportunity to speak about Krishna. If I'm the same as everybody else, I'm no one to talk to. There's nothing special. But our dress signals to people that we stand for something, which kind of interest or not of interest provides an opportunity. I was with Vaisheshika Prabhu one time, just near second, and we were talking about this point, walking around in our usual dress, that we thought it was an advantage to be dressed this way. And as we were discussing that, young gentleman came up from the subway and said to Vaisheshika, I like your dhoti. So there you are. If we were in civil dress, we could easily mix with people, so they are not reserved to talk with us. Yeah, well, first of all, dress this way or that way. This is not the ultimate issue. Prabhupada said we could dress in, dhotis and saris and so on, or like gentlemen. He didn't like what he called hippie dress, sort of, again, low class attire. But to gentlemen, he accepted. That said, it works both ways. If you're civil dress, you can go into a bar and order a whiskey, and no one will say anything. So the dress protects us also. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, in a different context, cited that during the war in India, when was it war, and India was part of the empire. There, an advertisement which consisted of the image of a uniform on like painted on the wall would be a uniform, and said, just put on the uniform and the uniform will tell you what to do. So when we're dressed with dhotis and saris and tilak and shikha, dressed in neck beads and so on, then our dress tells us that there are certain things we should do and certain things we should not do. There's certain things that we know we shouldn't do because we're identifying ourselves to others and to ourselves as devotees. So the dress can be protective also. We know that dressed in such a way that people expect something of us, and we expect something of ourselves. So the dress tells us what to do. And yes, people may be reserved and not want to talk with us, but my experience is that's the opposite way. If you're dressed like everyone else, people have no reason to talk with you. And if you're dressed differently, you're interesting. How would you respond to those who think or say that we're in a cult? Yeah. Now the question is it a good cult or a bad cult? I'm the member of a cult, and in our cult, we don't. We believe in nonviolence. We believe in truthfulness. We believe in mercy. We believe in self-restraint. We believe in humility. We don't gamble. We don't eat meat. We don't take intoxicants. We don't have illicit sex. We engage in service to God. We try to spread God consciousness to others. So we think this is a very good cult, and we invite you to join our cult also. If we dress the role we play, the people searching for what we have to say know who to turn to. That was Prabhupada's point, that that a policeman is dressed as a policeman. So you know right away that when you want to go looking for a policeman, here's your man. The story is famous how Prabhupada met Hayagriva because Prabhupada was walking down the street and Hayagriva, recently returned from India, recognized that here's a sadhu, here's a saintly person. So the dress immediately announced Prabhupada's identity. Prabhupada had said, in fact, that his godbrothers had advised him to go to America suited and booted. Suited and booted, dressed like a Westerner. And Prabhupada said, I'm not going to adopt their culture, but I am going to turn them to our culture. So Prabhupada kept his culture. He didn't feel that he had to eat with a knife and fork because the Westerners did. He kept his own standard. And I know that we found it, what should we say, attractive. Srila Prabhupada's way of doing things. And what would have been the attraction of just seeing that Prabhupada had, was like us, if Prabhupada had come, well, I wouldn't even say, but if we see devotees just dressed in blue jeans and ordinary dress, I'm all right, so what, you're like everybody else. Everybody else is like everybody else also. So what's the point? But if you're dressed differently, then you stand out. I've said on different occasions that if we'd paid a big New York advertising agency and said, listen, we have a message we want to get across, and we need you to kind of bring us up in public visibility, make people aware of us. Could you help us out? Could you give us a strategy? you know, the strategy like the one we already have would be worth millions. You know, Hill and Knowlton or one of those guys, if they could come up with you know, wear this on your forehead and wear this on the back of your head and dress this way and sing and dance on the streets, and you'll be known throughout the world. That kind of professional advice would be invaluable. I know at one point in the 1970s, the Hare Krishna devotees were famous everywhere. I saw you in London. I saw you in Paris. I saw you here. And people literally thought there were thousands and thousands of us when, you know, total ISKCON population of the world might have been, you know, 2,000 devotees or something. Devotees actually out in public was, you know, modest. But just seeing these strikingly dressed people chanting and dancing made such an impression. I've seen you everywhere. You know, you people are, that was the, you people are everywhere. You people are everywhere. And now we're seeing that again in New York City. Ram Roy and his party are there dressed as devotees, and they're conspicuous. They're conspicuous, and all for the good. Now, that's not to say that we have to insist that everybody dress this way, or that devotees always must dress this way. If, for example, for going out and distributing books, we change our dress, Prabhupada was entirely fine with that. If it was an advantage for distributing our books, he was for it. But just that we should be respectable. So dress this way or that way, that's up to you. But there's this, but I find there's an advantage to this dress for ourselves and for others. Let's see, there's a, if we dress the role we play, people searching for what we have to say will know who to turn to. Yes. There's a marketing book called The Culting of Brands. By the author's reckoning, Apple was a cult. Saturn Autos were a cult. Very good book. Krishna Lunch at the University is a kind of cult within the larger cult of the Gator Nation. Yes, the devotees stand out. Prabhupada gave the story that there was a business where the proprietor was a Muslim and the employees were all Hindus. This was an earlier day, so the employees all had tilak, and the Muslim's boss said to them, now from tomorrow, I don't want to see this tilak, no more tilak. Anyone who wears tilak to work will be fired. So the next day, everyone, all the workers came in without tilak except for one man. He kept his tilak. So then when the boss saw this, he said, from now on, only he can wear tilak. The man had stuck to his guns. Our purpose is to remind ourselves and others of Krishna. That's finally our purpose. It's not whatever we do, our purpose is to remind ourselves of Krishna and to remind others of Krishna. That's our point. Smartavyam satadam Vishnu, vismartavyam najati chet. Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. That's the point. So in my experience, this dress is helpful for remembering Krishna and reminding others of Krishna. There are circumstances where it's not helpful in totalitarian countries, or other circumstances where Prabhupada said distributing books in the airport, where the devotional dress, as we call it, may do more harm than good. So you can adjust. There's no, it's not, you know, this is where the battle lines are drawn. Saris and dhotis, no, not saris and dhotis. Western dress, no, saris and dhotis. You know, it's like, can we move on, please? This is not the most important issue in the world. Srila Prabhupada was pleased with this dress. There's a picture of the devotees sitting in front of 26 Second Avenue. Prabhupada called it angels from Vaikuntha, all in devotional dress. And there's a statement in Nectar of Devotion. Maybe Prabhin might find it. In a particular province, the people are of low class, but when they are dressed in with tilak on their bodies and so on, they look more. They look as if they've just come from the spiritual world. They look better than the ordinary Brahmins. They look like they've come from the spiritual world. Maybe someone can find that. Okay, there's something Gurudas has posted. I can't see it. And I know from experience it's not going to show up on my computer.
Sorry about that. It was a post of a picture of Ram Roy's Harinam group in New York City.
Okay. Can you share?
I don't know I can do any better than what Zoom is offering me how to do it.
If you have a share screen button, see if you
Oh, okay. Let's see if I can do it that way.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
You have permission.
Yeah, I just have to figure out how to get back to my. Okay, let me see here.
There you go. Now you have to navigate to the screen that has the
Right.
picture. I'm viewing your screen, but it doesn't have anything on it.
Okay. Give me half a second to get there. I don't want to take up everybody's time though.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
If you figure it out, otherwise, I can say the Harinam party from Atlanta was here in Gainesville a couple of days ago. They stopped by our house. 15, almost 15 young brahmacharis, all dressed in brahmachari dress and tilak and shaved heads and shining bright brahmacharis, and they looked so wonderful. They looked so wonderful, and they're not only that, but they're attracting people like anything in Atlanta. New people are coming, new people are joining, so they're meeting with great success in their traditional. Yeah, you want to click on that photograph on your lower right. Just navigate.
Yeah, it's about to open. It's just taking a long time. Here it is. As soon as
Okay.
it decides to.
Anyway, those young men were here. They certainly reminded me of Krishna, and reminded me of what should I say, of days when the Krishna consciousness movement was more visible, and happy brahmacharis dressed in.
Can you see it now?
Nope. Okay, you can give up, but we can see it in your thumbnails. There they are with our harmonium and so on.
Yeah.
So in our mind's eye, we can picture the New York Kirtan party.
Sorry about that.
We can picture the New York Sankirtan party in Union Square or elsewhere, chanting Hare Krishna and nicely dressed. And I see, by the way, that there we are. There we are. There we are, standing out. And I see sometimes that when people join who are dressed like the ordinary Americans, sometimes their dress is, what should we say? By dress, we identify ourselves as belonging to a particular social group. So whether we're conscious of it or not, because of the jeans we wear, the tattoos we wear, the earrings we wear, or the way we wear our hair or our makeup, or what kind of shoes and all that, we identify ourselves as belonging to a particular subset of American culture, belonging to a particular socioeconomic group, and people right away put you in a sort of they size you up. He's above me. He's below me. He's this. He's that. And anyway, there's a very funny book which talks about class markers. There's your shoes, your what they call accessories for women. They all identify you as belonging to a particular class. But when you're dressed like dhotis, saris, and all of that, you just broke through all the divisions. People don't know what to make of you. Are you Upper East Side? Are you Lower East Side? Are you Bowery? Are you this? Are you that? Suddenly you belong to the transcendental culture. You belong to, they can't, you're not part of this world anymore. You belong to a new category. So if you'd like to belong to that new category and sort of bust people's circuits and have them take a step back and perhaps see you that they look like as if they're coming from Vaikuntha. That was the that was the statement in Nectar Devotion. They look better than the ordinary Brahmins, as if they were coming from Vaikuntha. Okay. There's here it is. It's posted now. Well, there's a few things posted. We'll put them all in. I think anyone who makes such claims about people shrinking back from us as in devotional dress should do an actual scientific randomized study with control groups to determine harmful or helpful. Otherwise, it's just a matter of personal preference. It says more about the person who makes those claims than it does about how people perceive us. Okay, in other words, it's subjective. Here's the quotation from Nectar of Devotion. When they are dressed with saffron-colored cloth, with tilak on their foreheads and beads in their hands, and they look exactly as if they have come directly from Vaikuntha. Krishna book, rainy season and autumn. And someone says that preaching is booming. Sankarshan says that. Someone posed that question to the devotee who made that claim. He says that preaching is booming where devotees dress in regular clothing. No arguing with him. Yeah, the real thing is preaching is thriving where people are Krishna conscious. If you're Krishna conscious and then and you project Krishna consciousness to others by whatever means, people will become Krishna conscious. And if you're not Krishna conscious, dress this way, that way, or the other way, and it won't have much effect. More evidence in the Skanda Purana, in the Kashi Kanda portion, where it is said, this is the fuller version of the quote, in the country known as Mayuradhvaj, the lower caste people who are considered less than Shudras are also initiated in the Vaishnava cult of devotional service. And when they, are properly dressed with tilak in their bodies and beads in their hands and on their necks, they appear to be coming from Vaikuntha. In fact, they look so very beautiful that immediately they surpass the ordinary Brahmins. Nectar of Devotion, chapter 5. Gurudas says, I don't want to get into ISKCON politics here. Any non-controversial comments to make about Krishna West, which promotes preaching in the Western dress. What country is Mayuradhvaj? Some country. I will say, since someone has brought up Krishna West, I think Krishna West has provided the valuable insight that we are
not attending sufficiently to the Western public, that we are complacent with the low-hanging fruit of Indian audiences, and that we have tended to be, therefore, we've tended to be like Western audiences, and doing whatever we think is best for reaching more Indian people. I think that's an insight, perhaps not unique to Krishna West. I don't know that Krishna West is the first to make that observation, but I think they are reminding us of that. And I think that's a valid contribution. Okay. Beyond that, yes. So I think these I'm happy that we're ending with that quotation from the Nectar of Devotion. I think it's valuable for us. The point is that anyone can become Krishna conscious, and we all should become Krishna conscious, and we should do whatever we can to make others Krishna conscious. That's the final thing. All right, and top address is always good for a prolonged, lively discussion. Yeah, and on the other hand, we don't want to be preoccupied with dress. We don't want to be preoccupied with dress, and yet we may find that. Anyway, we won't go back and forth about it. The most important thing is to dress this way or dress that way, but be focused on the mission of spreading Krishna consciousness and practicing Krishna consciousness very seriously and sincerely. All right. Thank you to all. Thank you, Lakshmana, for bringing up that starting question. Very much appreciated. Thank you to all. And we look forward to seeing you anon and anon. Oh, I should say, we've gone over time today because we're sort of used to going over. Taco has revived their Thursday evening program. So they're on the same channel that I'm doing my classes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. There's now a Thursday program on the Tuaco channel. So if you'd like, you can navigate to the channel and hear the over there.
And do you know who's speaking today?
I don't know. I know that it's someone local. That's the program that they're adopting. One of the local devotees will speak on Kata. I don't know which devotee. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you, Meena Mataji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Purva, Kamalini.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Haridas Prabhu. Thank you all. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Prabhupada.
Jai. Thank you, Maharaj.